I'm back with another episode of A World Gone Mad, Season 2, Episode 62. I'm your host, Jeff Allen Wolf. Hope everyone is doing well after this weekend, and obviously Super Bowl weekend if you're a sports fan. I have to say, neither one of my teams were in the Super Bowl, but I was rooting for a particular team between the two. This was the worst Super Bowl I have ever watched in over 40 plus years. Now, my girlfriend was generous enough to allow me to watch the whole day, not just when the Super Bowl started at kickoff. So I saw the pregame, everything about New Orleans, and considering I've been there before during Mardi Gras, etc., that was kind of cool to revisit again. But there was an omen that this game was going to be bad from the beginning, when just as I was getting into the swing of everything and having fun, all of a sudden on Fox, which was the channel carrying the Super Bowl, I hear, "Hello, I'm Brett Baer, and with me is the 45th president and now the 47th president." No. Before he could finish, luckily I had the episode recording, so I was only a couple of minutes, behind, stopping it here and there to set up snacks. So I got to fast forward past that abomination. Do you know what it's like to be enjoying something and then it gets disrupted with Donald the delusional one's face, and they're going to do a 5-minute interview before the Super Bowl? But of course, he wants to make it about him, not about the sporting event. So after recalibrating and moving forward past that fiasco, I got to enjoy the game, well, at least before kickoff. Anyway, thank you, Donald, for ruining something else that I enjoy doing in our country. Okay, here we go. Trump instructs the Treasury to halt penny production. President Donald Trump announced Sunday that he has instructed Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent to halt the production of pennies, citing the high cost of producing 1 penny. For too long, the United States has minted pennies which literally cost us more than 2 cents. This is so wasteful. I have instructed my Secretary of the U.S. Treasury to stop producing any new pennies. Let's rip the waste out of our great nation's budget, even if it's a penny at a time, Donald said in a post to social media. Now, last year, a New York Times Magazine story argued for abolishing the penny. The necessity of abolishing the penny has been obvious to those in power for so long that the inability to accomplish it has transformed the coin into a symbol of deeper rot, the New York Magazine piece noted. They're also talking about getting rid of the nickel. Now, personally, the penny I have not used in ages, considering we use digital and we tap with our credit card when we pay in a store for something. I really couldn't care less if the penny goes away. The nickel, the same thing. So one of the few things, very lightly I agree with, what the Trump administration is trying to do. That's one in a row. Judge says Trump administration is not in full compliance with order on spending. Now, a federal judge in Rhode Island has found that the Trump administration has continued to improperly freeze some federal funds despite a temporary restraining order issued late last month blocking the efforts to pause payments for grants and other federal programs. In a 5-page order issued Monday, U.S. District Court Judge John McConnell Jr. wrote the administration, in several instances, has continued to improperly freeze federal funds and refuse to resume disbursement of appropriated federal funds. Now, the Trump administration has said the freeze is necessary in order to review federal funding, to make sure it aligns with the president's agenda. But in his order, Judge McConnell said the freeze was likely unconstitutional and has caused and continues to cause irreparable harm to a vast portion of this country. Now, Monday's order came in response to a lawsuit brought by attorneys generals in 22 states and the District of Columbia. In his decision, Judge McConnell ordered the administration to immediately restore frozen funding and immediately end any federal funding pause that affects the challengers. And why anyone thinks including a judge, that Donald will listen to this ruling remains to be seen. Scientists grew human-like teeth in pigs. Could this lead to living tooth replacements? Now, this was reported on NPR recently. Losing a tooth is tough. If we lose the small living structures that help us chew our food, we're left with the options of replacing them with dentures or implants, and that can be costly. Now, beyond that, there's also the negative stigma around tooth loss people experience. But researchers may be on track to developing a way to grow new, living teeth replacements. In a paper published in late December, a team at Tufts University reported having successfully grown human-like teeth in pigs. Pamela Yellick, a professor at the Tufts University of Dental Medicine and lead researcher of the effort, said pigs have as many as 5 or 6 sets of teeth that grow throughout their lives. Now, if scientists can understand how pigs regrow and replace teeth so many times, Yellick said, they might be able to regrow teeth in people. In their research, Yellick and her team took soft living tissue from both human and pig teeth, combined them in a lab, then transplanted it into a mini pig's mouth. They obtained the materials from pig jawbones and human teeth extracted for orthodontic reasons. In a few months, you can get a pretty good-sized bioengineered tooth, Yellick said, noting that while it's not perfect in shape or size, the end product does closely resemble a natural tooth. Now, the science is not yet ready to be used in humans, Yellick said, but she is hopeful that with advancements in the fields of regenerative medicine and dentistry, it will accelerate the ability to regrow new teeth and other organs. Yellick says the idea is to study how pig teeth grow, try to figure out how to replicate that process in people. She says this research could help improve how we repair and replace our teeth so that they are stronger and last longer. You know, when you think of a tooth crown or a dental implant, some of the methods that have been used have been around for 100 years, Yellick said. Time to get some better substitutes out there. Susan Collins says Trump's research cuts violate the law as states sue to block them. Susan Collins, the Republican chair of the Senate committee in charge of all government funding, said Monday the Trump administration's decision to cut $4 billion in health research grant money violated the appropriations law Congress passed last March, as 22 states sued to block the cuts. The cuts, which target national institutes of health grantees, indirect overhead costs, would be devastating, stopping vital biomedical research and leading to the loss of jobs, Collins said in a statement. Now, Collins added that she this morning had conveyed to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., President Donald Trump's nominee to lead the NIH's parent agency, the Department of Health and Human Resources, her strong opposition to these arbitrary cuts in funding for vital research. You know, he has promised that as soon as he is confirmed, he will re-examine this initiative that was implemented prior to his confirmation, Collins said. I have to laugh. Collins is set to vote as soon as this week to confirm Kennedy to lead HHS and will oversee legislation due next month to fund the government in fiscal 2025. You know, she is either ignorant or naive. Either way, it's not good. Remember when she said, and she was the one who said, I'm not going to vote for impeachment on Donald Trump. You know, I think he's learned his lesson at this time, and he's not going to do this again. Bzzz. Wrong answer at that time, Susan. And you're trusting RFK Jr. that when he's confirmed, he's going to revisit this? Wow. Trump doubles down on the Gaza plans. Trump said explicitly in an interview this weekend that Palestinians would not have a right to return to Gaza under his plan to take U.S. ownership of the Strip and rebuild it. Trump is set to meet Tuesday with King Abdullah of Jordan, who has rejected his plan. You know, I'm trying to figure out a complete list of how many people Donald hates. Let's see, gays, transgender people, women, Mexicans, blacks, Jews, old people, different cities around the country, Philadelphia, California, to name a few. I'm sure I forgot a group or a city that he hates. He basically hates anyone who disagrees with him or didn't vote for him. From immigration to DOGE, one person is more powerful in the White House than ever. Nearly every day since President Donald Trump entered office 3 weeks ago, he has convened a huddle in the West Wing with two of his senior most aides to plot out the next steps, dramatically reshaping the federal government. One is his chief of staff, Susie Wiles. The other is Stephen Miller, remember the name? Whose title is Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy. In many ways, it understates the massive influence he commands, both with the president and across the government. Miller is helping to drive a maximalist immigration enforcement agenda, one he has spent much of his career designing, and he's working closely with his ally, Elon Musk, on the billionaire Trump's blessed mission to shrink the size of the federal government and rid it of the deep state bureaucrats. Miller is now one of the most powerful people in government, with a direct line to Trump, and perhaps more importantly, a canny ability to translate Trump's policy ideas into action. The American people voted for dramatic change implemented by Donald Trump, Miller told CNN in an interview last week. So it is essential for him to get control of the government. The wrong people, like Bill and Musk, with the most power, not conducive to keeping democracy flowing in our country. If you have any comments, you can email me at wolfpacklistener@gmail.com, wolfpacklistener. Leave a comment on the app you're using if it has that feature. And once again, my toll-free 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week phone number, just a voicemail system, everyone, 833-399-9653. Very few people have taken advantage of this or used it because I guess you guys are afraid of being heard. If you don't want me to use your name or comments on the podcast, you just say when you're recording your message on the toll-free number, "Hey, Jeff, please don't use my name on the air," or "I don't want my name or my comment to go on the air." That's all. I'll respect that. A constitutional crisis looms. Vice President J.D. Vance, Elon Musk, and others in the Trump administration are openly challenging the centuries-old power of the nation's judiciary, foreshadowing a possible constitutional breakdown of American government. Remember, I said the last bastion of defense, the last rule of law, the checks and balances against Donald, is the judiciary, the judges. Some of Trump's staff are privately questioning whether rulings recently from courts will even constrain Donald Trump's actions. For example, some of the judges you heard about are warning about not freezing funds, and you need to release those funds. Those rulings have been ignored. Chief Justice John Roberts may have foreseen these turn of events 6 weeks ago, as he warned at the end of December that elected officials from across the political spectrum have raised the specter of open disregard for federal court rulings. These dangerous suggestions, however, sporadic, must be soundly rejected. It just doesn't happen. Columbia University constitutional law professor Gillian Metzger said on Monday. But it just doesn't happen because there is a very deep-seated norm of law following and commitment to the rule of law. If we get to the point when we have the executive branch of the government refusing to follow orders of the court, we really are in a constitutional crisis land. And the president at that point is violating the take care duty. Many of Trump's executive orders violate federal law. But again, it doesn't stop him from issuing those executive orders. Now, if a judge tried to tell a general how to conduct a military operation, that would be illegal, Vice President J.D. Vance said in a post on X. If a judge tried to command the Attorney General in how to use her discretion as a prosecutor, that's also illegal, Vance said. judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power. That's a very misguided comment about the rule of law from J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance also stated the following: Trump could respond to adverse decisions like Andrew Jackson did and say, the Chief Justice has made his ruling, now let him try to enforce it. And I asked, just how would the courts enforce the laws on Trump when they've ruled against him? How does a judge make Trump comply? The quote is not really fitting here, added University of Chicago law professor Alison LaCroix, who is also a legal historian. There was no order issued to the president, Mr. Jackson. It was issued to Georgia, which had asserted authority over members of the Cherokee Nation living there. The Supreme Court ruled that federal jurisdiction was exclusive, so Georgia lacked the authority to control the Cherokees. But President Jackson, who had pressed for Indian removal, refused to enforce the order and instead sent troops to forcibly remove the Cherokee Indians in what became known as the Trail of Tears. Now, on Saturday, a federal judge temporarily restricted Musk's government efficiency team from accessing the Treasury Department's payment system that covers Social Security benefits and federal employee salaries, among other payments. Musk responded by calling the judge's ruling was wrong. The judge is corrupt, and he needs to be impeached. We, Wolfpack listeners, are at a crossroads. A constitutional crisis awaits. So what's next? Has Congress and the Senate lost its power? It seems so. Is the Supreme Court the only checks and balances left against Donald delusional? And we all know how any rulings from the Supreme Court are going to turn out. So what's the final outcome? It's too early to tell. The thick plottins. I'll be back in 2 days with another episode of A World Gone Mad. I'm Jeff Allen Wolf, sitting in a room, talking to myself. Stay hopeful.